Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we're going to be continuing down the line of the Alien slash Predator franchise, and we're going to be talking about none other than the recent installment into the Predator fandom, and that is Predator Badlands. So this movie did come out, I want to say last weekend, so not this weekend that I'm recording, but the weekend before. I saw it. It was absolutely phenomenal. I want to see it again. It really did reignite my love for both the Alien and the Predator franchise. I mean, I always love them, but having it on the big screen and seeing it on the big screen, I mean, I haven't felt this like kind of like giddy and excited about the franchise since Alien Romulus, and then more recently Alien Earth, which was the last video. So I figured this would be kind of like a good tie-in, considering that the last video was on Alien Earth, so might as well have the next video be on Predator Badlands. So of course there are a couple other movies and TV shows that I want to cover, as the rest of the year goes on. But I figured, to start, I'm going to record the episode on Predator Badlands and go from there. I still want to do a video on Tron Ares. Obviously, I will be fairly busy both in the retail aspect and the movie aspect as well. We're having movies such as like Zootopia 2, Wicked for Good, and Avatar Fire and Ash come out for the rest of the year. So I am going to be pretty busy and pretty slammed. So please bear with me. This is like literally one of the only days off that I have until Thanksgiving. So I finally have the opportunity to record an episode. So please bear with me as I try to find the time to, properly record episodes and post them for you guys. I mean, for those of you that have been following the podcast for years, you know that this time of year is, exceptionally busy for both the retail and the movies. So obviously any understanding would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, other than that, I've been doing pretty good. Just work has been keeping me extremely busy. Like I said, I mean, for the rest of the year, I'm going to be fairly busy. Yeah, I'm just kind of trucking along and just, going through my routine as usual. Enough about me. Let's let's dive into some Predator Badlands. Let me just fix this real quick. Okay, so Predator Badlands, as I mentioned, came out last weekend. So it would have came out on the 7th. So it came out on November 7th. Looking at the cast and crew a little bit, we have, Elle Fanning as Thea, which is, one of these synthetics from the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. We have, and I apologize if I butcher this name, we have Demetrius Schuster Kula Matangi, who plays Deck, which is the young Yautja warrior that we meet during the film. We have Ravi Naharan play Bud. We have Ruben De Jong play Deck's father. And there's just one more name that I want to highlight. We have actually two actors. It looks like we have Michael Hamik and Stefan Grub playing Quay, which was Deck's older brother in the film. Relatively, again, I'm not the best when it comes to actors and actresses. I remember, Elle Fanning from, she played Catherine the Great in kind of like a historical, like, drama type show. Um, I'm not familiar with the actor that plays Deck as well as the other ones, but a fairly well-rounded cast. We'll get into details in a little bit about their performances and stuff like that. But yeah, so that is the cast and crew. Let's see, just kind of do a quick because I just want to see who it was directed by. So it's directed by Dan Trachtenberg, and if that name is familiar, he also directed Prey and Predator: Killer of Killers. So he is, a well-established, director and writer within the Predator franchise, and has really helped with, I don't want to necessarily say the revival, but in a way, the revival. Because, I mean, again, we've seen that, Alien has gotten a little bit more love these last couple of years. On his back, he's basically gave us the likes of Prey, which was absolutely phenomenal, and then Predator Killer of Killers, which I would like to do an episode on because I think that was phenomenal as well. And then he gave us Badlands. And I mean, from what I've been seeing, I mean, we'll get into ratings in a little bit, but from what I've been seeing and from what I've been hearing, everybody's absolutely loved it. I mean, I hear it killed it at the, excuse me, at the box office. Uh, the opening weekend, which was great. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later. Uh, but yeah, so now, as I mentioned, we're going to get into some of the ratings. So you know how we do things here. We usually look at IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic. So looking first at IMDb, we see that it gave it a 7.6 out of 10, which is a fairly good score. You know, it's right about like, I mean, if we're looking at this in like a math perspective, it's about a C plus, like a B minus in some respect. Which, again, for a film like this is very good. Next, we have Metacritic, and we see Metacritic has given it a 71 out of 100. So again, very on par, on scale with, IMDb in the same aspects. Just kind of scrolling down, we see that, some of the reviews, we have 100 from San Francisco Chronicle. We have, some people giving it a 10, a 10. We have Crush giving it a 80. We have Variety giving it an 80. We have Wall Street Journal giving it a 70. So overall, we see that the fandom, looking at it in like a relatively, um, you know, score review, is relatively positive. I mean, we got like a 70% overall positive score, mixed in with like a 30% mixed score. And then even the users, I mean, we see overall that it is a relatively positive score. We see that the positive outweighs, the negative. We kind of see like almost like a 60-30 split. So overall, Metacritic is very on par with IMDb and has gave it, a great score as well. Last but not least, that leaves us to Rotten Tomatoes, and Rotten Tomatoes has actually given it a very good score. So we're going to start with the tomato meter. So we see that the tomato meter has it at certified fresh, which is absolutely fantastic, and it has it in 85%, which is just absolutely phenomenal for a Predator film. Which is, I think it probably is one of the highly grossed and best ranked Predator films that we've gotten throughout the franchise, and I think that's absolutely phenomenal. Um, we also have a popcorn meter of verified hot at 95%, which is just absolutely phenomenal. A couple little quotes here. We have a consensus from the critics saying that director Dan Trachtenberg continues to take the Predator franchise into exciting new directions with Badlands, a uh, rollicking adventure that transforms one of the cinema's most iconic brutes into a hero worth rooting for. I mean, that's just beautifully summed up. That's basically what it is. The audience is saying, while some purists may miss the primal intensity of the original R-rated classic, Badlands adds surprising layers to Dak, the new Predator, and sets up an exciting future for the iconic franchise, which is just beautifully well said. That's basically how I would describe it. Again, we kind of talked about that in Alien Earth a little bit, how depending on, if you're like kind of like a cultist or if you're a purist where you're like, oh, I like the old style, cinema making and stuff of like Alien and Predator, again, having a new spin on, the franchise and on this movie, you might not see it as your cup of tea. But if you're open to something new like Alien Earth, Predator Badlands is going to be right up your alley. Um, so overall, we're seeing that, IMDb, Metacritic, and Rotten Tomatoes is all giving it fantastic scores. We see that it has a well-rounded cast and crew. We see that it's piloted by a amazing director. Now, finally, I just want to look at the box office report. Now, obviously, it's still in theaters, so obviously the box office report will just continue to expand, throughout the tenure that it's in the movies for. We see that the budget was about 105 million. So, overall, relatively, decent sized budget for a movie of this standard. We see, now again, this is Wikipedia, so take this with a grain of salt. We see that the box office report for Predator Badlands is currently sitting at $136.6 million. Now, we're just going to fact check that real quick by just typing in box office report. So we see that the film earned an estimated 80 million globally during its opening weekend, with 40 million coming from domestic North American ticket sales. So again, we see that it already almost made its budget back in the opening weekend, which is phenomenal. So this opening actually also surpasses the previous record held by The Predator in 2018, which opened up with 73.5 million, and also beats the domestic record set by Alien vs Predator in 2004, which is 38 million. So again, I mean, it's been, and again, it does confirm that the production budget has a whopping total of 105 million. So we already see that it's made back its budget, and I mean, obviously, it just continues to make money at the box office. So again, this isn't going to be like your highly grossing film, like compared to if we look at Alien Romulus, for example. I mean, I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but just kind of looking at that. Opening weekend, Alien Romulus made about $41.5 million in North America, making it the second highest opening in franchise history. Now, the global debut, the film grossed $108.2 million globally, and total earnings has it sitting at about $350.43 million. So is it going to make as much as Alien Romulus? It definitely does have potential. The only trouble with this is that it is going to start competing with films such as like Wicked and Zootopia 2, and then eventually Avatar Fire and Ash. So, I think unfortunately it will slowly die down at the box office, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad movie. I mean, it is a fantastic movie and it deserves all its flowers, but, it's just kind of like unfortunate timing. If this movie comes out maybe late in the summer or like earlier in the fall, maybe you're looking at a little bit more of a shelf life, when it comes to being in theaters. But unfortunately, because of when it came out right around the holiday season, it's definitely going to have to compete with some pretty heavy hitters. So now that we went through, the whole bread and butter, we went through the cast and crew, we looked at the box office, we looked at the reports from all the different critic websites. We are going to, finally get into some of the meat and potatoes, and we're going to look at the pros and the cons of Predator Badlands. So we're going to start with the cons, obviously, because we always like to end on a high note, obviously. So, some of the cons for Predator Badlands that I found myself, as well as other people, is first, its PG-13 rating limits its intensity. So, longtime fans feel the toned down violence dulls the Predator's edge compared to earlier R-rated entries. This is true. I mean, I think the movie was still intense in its own right, but I mean, compared to, like the very first Predator or some of the other movies in the franchise, it definitely wasn't as bloody and gory and intense as it could have been. Now, again, I mean, I think for what it was, I think it was done perfectly. I mean, we still see Deck, slash through creatures, we still see blood, and we see bodies get decapitated and stuff like that. But they do a pretty good job of like kind of using that PG-13 rating to its advantage. And what they basically do is that, they kind of use all that like quote unquote blood and gore in respect to like the synthetics, right? So we see Deck and like some of the alien creatures like dismantling and destroying a lot of synthetics. So in a way, they're able to kind of get that blood and gore aspect on the screen without making it rated R and still making it PG-13, because technically those aren't people, those are just robots, or those are just synthetics, from the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. So they kind of get away with it in their own right. But, again, I mean, I'm sure, having an R-rated, Predator film, would have added a little bit more depth, maybe a little bit more, nuance to, some of the fight scenes and the combat scenes. But I don't think it, the PG-13 rating takes away anything from it. I mean, if anything, I think it allows more people to see the movie and introduce more people to the franchise. So the second point we have here is that the franchise teases without payoff. So broader hints at the Predator universe don't fully deliver, leaving some threads unresolved. I don't think this is the case at all. I think this is actually a really bad point. There are plenty of Easter eggs and there are plenty of callbacks to some of the other Predator films and just the franchise as a whole, whether it's Alien or Predator. The introduction of, Tia, as the Weyland-Yutani synthetic, and just kind of bringing the Alien franchise into this film relatively nicely, I think pays off very well. And especially the end of the film, I think, teases another installment and like another movie for the franchise. So I don't agree with this point at all. Actually, it's actually a really bad point. But yeah, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it does make some, pretty nice callbacks to the Predator franchise. And like I said, I think the way the movie ends, I think it sets up for, more installments in the future. Another point we have here is the over reliance on digital doubles. So the heavy use of CGI for certain sequences detracts from the gritty realism fans expect. Sure, I mean, of course, with a film like this, there's going to be a lot of CGI, but I mean, again, I think for what they were going for, it was necessary. I mean, you can only make so many natural props for alien creatures, especially if the whole movie is kind of summarized around him partaking in his first hunt, when he goes to an alien planet to take down one of the most ferocious predators on that planet. You can't have like some guy in a suit, I mean, so, and I think the use of CGI I think was relatively tasteful. There were some scenes where I was like, like, you could easily tell it was CGI, but overall I don't think the CGI was that bad at all. I think it was relatively well done. And it didn't really bother me. I mean, I was more invested in Deck and the characters surrounding him, that I didn't really pay too much attention to how much CGI was actually in the film or not. Um, Last but not least, we have two more points here. We have mixed reception among diehard fans. So again, this is going to kind of piggyback onto what we discussed with Alien Earth, where you're going to have some diehard traditional fans. They might be disappointed by the lighter tone and deviation from the franchise's darker roots. So again, it really just comes from preference, to be honest. If you are more of a traditionalist when it comes to Alien and Predator, again, a film like this for you might not be what you're looking for, But if you are open to a different interpretation or just expanding lore of these franchises, then this movie is definitely for you. I said the same thing for Alien Earth, and that pretty much stays the same when it comes to Predator. Finally, we have the musical score is underwhelming. So while serviceable, the soundtrack doesn't elevate the film as much as other technical aspects. This one, you kind of just throw away this point as well, to be honest. I mean, I think, when the music did come on, I think it was relatively enjoyable. Again, I feel like when it comes to Alien or Predator, you're not really watching it for the musical score. So, I mean, again, unless you are a musical fanatic when it comes to movies and you just pay attention to the scores, sure, this might bother you. But I think overall, I think it served its purpose when it came on screen, and that's pretty much it. So overall, if you're looking for any negatives when it comes to Predator Badlands, overall, you know, um, the PG-13 rating is debatable amongst fans, just depending on what you're looking for and what they maybe could have done a little bit differently if it was rated R. Obviously, with a Predator film, just like Alien, there's going to be a lot of CGI. So if you're not the biggest fan of CGI, or you don't like the way they animate things, you might have a problem with that. Depending on what type of fan you are, whether you're more traditional or you're a little bit more progressive, obviously this film might not be for you, just depending on what your stance is when it comes to, your personal fandom. And finally, if you are just a huge fan of musical scores when it comes to movies, depending on how you feel about this one, it might not be your cup of tea. So these are all relatively minor points, and I mean, they're relatively, they make sense. I mean, some of them are just kind of like, whatever. But overall, they're not really bad points. Really the only thing to kind of take away is that some people were upset about the rating and the CGI and the musical score. But now, we're going to end this video on a high note, and we're going to talk about the pros. So, some of the pros for Predator Badlands was a fresh direction for the franchise. So, the film reinvents Predator with a new dynamic, pairing a young Yautja with an android, which adds humor and heart. So, again, I think Deck and Thea, stole the show. I think their dynamic in the film was really funny, and they do make a good pair. The whole idea of this young Yautja warrior going from a isolated, singular hunting path, to modeling, his hunt after a wolf pack and kind of creating his own family and his own clan. Um, was nice, and it was a nice change of pace for the franchise. Um, so yeah, I think the two of them together, I think it did definitely add some humor for sure. It added some heart, because eventually they kind of start to care about each other throughout the film, and it was nice. I enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of like Kaylee Spaney and Andy in Romulus. So it was a nice change of pace for sure. Another point we have here is strong performances. So Elle Fanning is highlighted as a standout, bringing vibrancy and depth to her dual role. I mean, she was just absolutely phenomenal, playing the parts of two synthetics with two totally different personalities. I think she absolutely nailed it. I think she was definitely a standout for the film. The actor that also played Deck, I think he was phenomenal. I think they were really able to capture his facial expressions. I think he did a phenomenal job in the suit. Um, and again, I think the two of them on screen together, I think was just absolutely phenomenal, and it just made for a amazing pairing. So we have expanded lore and character depth. So the movie explores predator culture and family dynamics, giving a more emotional weight to the Yautja characters. So yeah, if you definitely are a fan of expanded lore and some character depth, it definitely does dive into the Yautja family, culture and dynamic. We see that Deck is trying to avenge his brother, and we see that his father, doesn't really acknowledge him or respect him because he considers him to be the runt of the clan, and he needs to be killed, and that's why we see Deck's brother, Kiwe, protect him, and send him off on the hunt because we see the bond between the brothers, and overall we see Deck's kind of like lust for revenge kind of turned into more of like a constructed moral compass where like he kind of adapts a different ideology when it comes to hunting, and what that means for him, as a Yautja. And then obviously we see the climactic end of the movie where he reconfronts his father, with his trophy, and we see them duke it out, and he ends up killing his father. Therefore you could argue becoming head of the clan or just killing the head of the clan. But then obviously it leaves off on a cliffhanger when we see that Deck's mother arrives. And we really haven't seen a female Yautja on screen before. So it obviously leaves off to potential sequels and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting. We see that it's also visually stunning. So obviously critics note top-notch visual effects, including the CGI and whatnot, ambitious world building and thrilling action sequences. I think the world building was definitely very good. I mean, obviously, it kind of like reminded me of like Pandora, and how well they were able to kind of like world build when it came to that. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I think the CGI animation I think was done the right way, and I don't think it was too like out of the box and stuff like that. And overall, it really did feel like you were on an alien planet. I mean, like, literally anything he touched or anything he looked at tried to kill him, and like that's that's like perfect world building right there. Um, Last 2 points that we have here are engaging storytelling. So the narrative is described as propulsive with creative action and coming of age arc that resonates, with, just I guess people, nowadays. Yeah, the storytelling is definitely very constructive. And again, it's a nice twist to the franchise because it actually allows you to kind of like root for the predator. So you kind of see this like young Yautja, kind of grow into his own and find out what it means to be a hunter and stuff like that and a predator. Um, and again, it's a nice little coming of age story that could possibly resonate with people, depending on like their family dynamic and their relationships and stuff like that. And even myself, I could relate to a little bit of his coming of age story and the bond that he has with his brother, and trying to prove, that he could do, what he wants, regardless of what his family, tells him, or basically the whole dynamic of like being more than your family tells you to be. Your family wants you to be something, one thing they want you to aspire to pursue one thing, but you know, the bond between siblings and taking your own path and doing whatever. I definitely resonate with a lot. Finally, the last point we have is the revitalization of the franchise. So many reviewers call it one of the best Predator films in decades, breathing new life into the series. So again, this kind of piggybacks off of what I said earlier with the director Dan, also directing Prey as well as Predator Killer of Killers. We definitely see the Predator franchise as well as the Alien franchise start to kind of trend up again, which is phenomenal. I mean, again, who knows where this movie is going to lead? I mean, obviously, it opens the doors. Both Killer of Killers and Badlands opens the doors for potential sequels, whether they're TV shows or animated movies or just a live action movie. Obviously, we see that there's already been a sequel greenlighted for Alien Romulus. We see Alien Earth just came out recently, which was one of the first TV shows ever for this franchise. We see that there is a second Isolation game coming out for Alien, so we definitely do see a revitalization in the franchise, and again, it allows a whole new generation to kind of become a part of this franchise and fall in love with it, just like those old time fans did as well. So you have like a nice blending of both the traditional and like the new fans, which is nice to see. And that is going to be it for today, guys. So I think some of the big key things to take away from this film is that it has beautiful animation. It has a very well written and driven story. The dynamic between Deck and Thea is absolutely amazing. Elle Fanning and her co-star do a phenomenal job when it comes to portraying their roles. And it definitely breathes just some life into the Predator franchise as a whole. Whether it's good or bad, depending on your point of view. It breathes some much needed life into the franchise, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go from here. So, with that being said, that is going to do it for today's episode, guys, where we go over and look at Predator Badlands. So, like I said, I'm really going to try my best throughout the rest of the year to upload and get some videos out to you guys, just depending on my work schedule and honestly when I could find the time to do so. So please bear with me. I always appreciate all your guys' love and support, no matter how big or small it is. I can get 5 views, I can get 500 views, but I do this, for my own happiness and well-being, and it's just nice to know that some of you guys, come along for the ride. So, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all the love and support. I really do appreciate it. If you want to find out more about this podcast and when the episodes do come out, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Two Sons Podcast. That's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You can also find me on YouTube at Two Sons Podcast. Again, that's with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. And just make sure you have those notifications and those bells on, so when I post uh, you know, the pics on social media, you guys know that there's a episode out to come and listen to and watch. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, great afternoon, great evening. Please be safe. Don't do anything stupid. Really enjoy the rest of November. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Spend time with your family. Be thankful for what you have. And let's all enjoy the holidays together. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.